I was listening to the Dan Patrick show, and you know Dan Patrick's from Ohio, right? Were you aware of that?
Right.
Okay.
I did not.
So you talk about one softball interview, and I love Dan Patrick, but it was almost as if the sports information department of Ohio State fed him questions to ask. And then there was a question about the death threats. So just to give a little bit of background, Ryan Day and his wife have started the foundation for mental health. And I guess this ties in some shape, form, or fashion because you have to be pretty crazy to send a football coach a death threat for what he did not do or did do against Michigan, right? I mean, come on. Let's be real here. However, I do believe that grandstanding a bit, that bringing this up just really makes it worse. And it almost sounds like to me that he's taking a shot at the Ohio State fans. Hey, I got my ring, so stick it. And I've covered people that have had death threats before. Jonathan Crompton, his family received death threats, and I did write about that. But it had gone pretty south in that 2009 season. A lot more south than just a loss to Michigan. And when you're the head coach, an adult, you should expect more harsh criticism and stupid death threats. That's a fact. So, Caleb, I got nothing for Ryan Day. I got no sympathy. I feel like he's just trying to get a little bit more attention for himself and talk about his difficult plight after winning the national championship. He's got his wife out there saying things. They're dropping things on social media. I think it makes his own fan base look bad. I think it's pretty pathetic.
It's beyond pathetic. And this is what losers do a lot of times. They want to leak now the funny thing is he just won the national title. So I'm going to sound stupid with what I'm saying, but Dave, I'm going to tell you this right now. People invoke personal victimhood to distract from their failures in the moment. And so
I don't think that's the case here. I think it's the case where he feels like he's got leverage so he can take a shot. If Tennessee got beat by Notre Dame by the same score, would he be talking about death threats right now?
Okay, so I'm sorry, my AirPods muted. 1 second.
If Ryan Day had got beaten by Notre Dame, would he be talking about death threats right now? The answer,
yes,
absolutely not.
No, I think he would because it was his wife that invoked it. I think his wife was doing it, and it felt like a way to protect Ryan Day. I'm going to give you an example because we just talked about, and this is where I'm not sympathetic. One, do you remember 2017, Jim McElwain invoking death threats in the middle of about to get fired at Florida?
Was that before? I do. Was that before or after the Sharkey incident?
It was after Sharkey incident.
Oh, right.
I'll go further. Last year, remember Angel Reese, the whole Angel Reese-Caitlin Clark rivalry, which we loved in college?
Yes.
Angel Reese, after losing to Caitlin Clark last year, by the way, it was humiliating. You talked all that trash, you talked a big game, and then you lost to Caitlin Clark in the NCAA tournament. She, at her post-game press conference, starts crying and like, I've been through so much this year. Her quote was, I've received death threats and I've been over-sexualized. And I thought, everybody gets death threats. You're just saying that to distract from your failures on the court that day. And the whole over-sexualized.
Who was overly sexualized again?
Angel Reese was claiming that. And I'm like, you're posting thirst traps on Instagram every day. Like, you literally have an NIL money where you post thirst traps. You can't do that and then be like, I was over-sexualized. No, you're trying to play victim to distract from the fact that you played like garbage in that game, okay? Another example, I'll give it. We just talked about race. And look, with Conzo, there's a lot there. But I will say, Kevin Sumlin, I'm sure he faced some racism at Texas A&M. I thought it was tacky when, as he was on the hot seat, his wife released some random Twitter person calling him the N-word. Like, this is what my husband deals with. I'm like, I get that he deals with that, but why are you picking now when you're struggling to bring this up? You want to distract from the fact that your coach is on the hot seat. So Ryan Day playing the whole no, I think his wife was actually preparing to come out with this before he actually messed around and won the national title because they wanted to play the victim card.
I don't think this comes out. If they lose to Tennessee, if they lose the college football playoff, this doesn't come out. Adam says Ryan Day is pulling an Urban Meyer, playing up hardships to make it look like he's accomplishing more than he is. Now, that kind of supports your point, especially if Ohio State loses to Michigan and then let's say loses to Tennessee. That would maybe does bring it up but that to me would come across as pathetic. This comes across as a statement because he has leverage from winning the national championship.
Where does the history of this come from? Let's tell the history of it real quick. The reason people love to do this, and it's so easy to do it online now, because you're like, someone sent me a death threat on Twitter. By the way, I've gotten death threats on Twitter, and I'm just a regular
Yeah, but those are just from me.
Dave, I'm sure you've gotten death threats before. They happen.
I've gotten death threats from a coach's son at UT.
There you go. I think that coach's son has complained about me too, by the way. He just hasn't given me a death threat. So I know
he called me a super B, not just a B, but a super B.
Well, this all comes from the real story of when Hank Aaron was chasing. This all stems from the Hank Aaron chasing Babe Ruth's record. So in 1972-73, Hank Aaron is chasing Babe Ruth's record. He breaks the record. And you know the story, Dave. I guess it was like 10 years later, the FBI releases like all the letters that were of death threats that were being sent to Hank Aaron from white supremacists that did not want him to break Babe Ruth's record. And they were real, they were credible, and there were and Hank Aaron never told anybody about it. And as he was chasing Babe Ruth's record, every game he would go out to play, the FBI was having to foil a plot to kill him during that time because there were people that didn't want to see him break Babe Ruth's record. Since then,
I'm sure Jackie Robinson went through similar things. I mean, to me, that is, if those guys want to talk about race, because if those guys want to talk about death threats because of the racial issues, I'm okay with that because I think it was probably widespread. There's a difference between getting 2 or 3 death threats and getting like dozens. And I don't think Ryan Day got dozens.
And also, and getting letters in the mail from people who know where you live. Exactly. Ever since the Hank Aaron story, everybody's wanted to like manufacture death threats or victimhood to distract from when they're failing. Because it's an easy cop out. It's I'm struggling here. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, like, not to call him out, but I do know the story of Randy Sanders. When Tennessee fans wanted him fired, he kind of came out and tried to play the people are giving my kids a hard time at school.
Well, no, they were. They were. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. He broke down when I just walked out of the interview room, so this is secondhand, but he broke down with like 4 or 5 reporters in there, and all the cameras were off. So some people reported that, but he didn't. I think he thought that was like an off-the-record moment, but it's not. You're in an interview room, and you broke down with your wife and 2 daughters. That I don't think there's any question that his kids were harassed at school because of his lack of success as a head coach. Do you?
I don't think it was as widespread as he may have made it out to. Maybe somebody said something they shouldn't have said. And people like to magnify these things, Dave. I'm just going to be honest. People love to magnify them when they're not performing their job. Well, I
also think he had to face something that you didn't have to before, because this is about the time that everybody has a social media account in the 2004 season, right? That's when Twitter's taking off. Everybody has Facebook. So, yeah, that to me is a big factor too.
Another one
he expected. I think it was easier to find Randy Sanders' children and what they look like than he ever thought it would be. All you had to do was have an active Facebook account, I imagine.
Let's also bring this up. You know, we're talking about these threats, and you're right, all on social media. Do you remember and I always bring it up, my favorite game of all time, the 2013 Alabama-Auburn game. But do you remember Cade Foster, the kicker for Alabama, that missed like 3 of those easy field goals at the time? He was getting death threats afterward, and everybody talked about it. And I'm like, again, I feel like you're leaking this to distract from the fact that you were on scholarship to make field goals, and you missed them, and you screwed up, and you cost Alabama a national title. And I'm like, you deserve all the smoke you get, not death threats, but you deserve all the hate from fans who don't want you to see you on the team anymore.
Let me ask you, do you think Nico Iamaleava got death threats after he ran out of bounds against Arkansas?
Yes, I do.
I do too. I think he probably did.
And I think Joe Milton got him too.
By the way, it's National Lego Day. If you want to participate in the poll question, Legos are, what are they? Cool, awesome, or weird? I have to go with weird. My son loves them. He has like over $10,000 worth of Legos because they hold their value. I'm not sure if you know about that, Caleb, but it's pretty fantastic. So at any point, you know, if things go south here, we can sell all his Legos so he can stay in school. National Fitness Center, unmatched value, limitless options. Begin your fitness journey today. Now, I also wonder if Lance Hurd got some death threats or John Campbell because they struggled at offensive tackle. I mean, I just don't think with social media and the ability to build a burner account. Hey, listen, and here's the other thing. They don't go hunt you down. And I'm not saying that you can make death threats, so you should. I'm saying when I got death threats from that coach's son, the News Sentinel told me, he said, well, you can call the cops if you want to. I mean, there was no support on the back end, and really there can't be until they do something. Papa J brings up a great point, and some are drunk when they send threats. Absolutely. You're back in the day, Caleb, if you have a phone, like a real to-the-wall phone, and you're calling the football office and leaving them a message, which I know people did back in the day, that's a little bit different. You're probably hammered, and you're less likely, I think, to write a letter and put it in the mail. So I do think part of this is the accessibility of athletes. You're drunk, you just go ahead and throw out there. I think we can all agree that death threats are pretty pathetic, right? From the fans' perspective.
Yes. They're pathetic from the fans' perspective, and it's lame. And I am totally fine if you can find out who these people are and prosecute them, because you shouldn't be making threats. What I don't like is people trying to.
I don't think it's a crime.
Threats are a crime. It is a crime to threaten someone's life. I mean, that is that's actually not protected speech. So it's, I mean, now you may not go to prison, but you can get like restraining orders, and you can get things like you can get investigated for it. So
okay, well, you're right. Death threats are illegal in most jurisdictions and considered a serious crime. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I forget. Is it Brandenburg v. Ohio, where the Supreme Court discusses direct threats and incitements of violence, and they said that that's not exactly protected speech. But by the way, one of the most important, just totally random, one of the most important Supreme Court cases that relate to speech involve Bear Bryant. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's Wally Butts versus the AP. Wally Butts and Bear Bryant against the Associated Press. Look it up. It's a very intriguing story. But that's a different thing altogether. The intriguing thing about the thing about me with death threats is that I'm all for holding people accountable for doing it. That doesn't mean I feel sympathy for the people that receive it. Like I said, Dave's gotten death threats. I've gotten death threats. We are a growing show that we hope to be huge one day. And before we're even close to that, we're getting death threats. I had them when I was writing back at All for Tennessee from Tennessee fans. It's just, guys, people send death threats because like someone said, they're drunk. They say stupid stuff. Now, another example was E.J. Lytle for Ohio State a few years ago when Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts in the NCAA tournament. He actually played well. He had 23 points and played extremely well in the game. He comes out and says right after, look at all these death threats people sent me. I'm like, one, how do I know they sent them to you and you didn't just create fake burner accounts and sent them to yourself? I mean, I know that's crazy. I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, Dave, but I think to play the victim, some people create burner accounts and send themselves death threats just to get the sympathy from social media. I do believe they do that.
Maybe. I don't think they have to do that. I mean, I think stupid death threats are going to come through if you fail on a major stage. I don't think you have to go looking for them. I think Nico probably got them. I think Lance Hurd probably got them.
But EJ Lytle didn't fail. That was the point. It's like he scored 23 points in that game. No one blamed him for the loss. So he was just bitter he lost and he wanted to play the victim because the season was over. I'm going to say it. I'm not always believing that. I don't always believe people when they say they're getting death threats. I think sometimes people create burner accounts and fake it. I do. I know y'all can call me crazy, but I mean, unsung is right. The Jussie Smollett story, I think a lot of players and coaches in sports do that. They like to fake things done to them so they can play the victim to distract from their failures. And I think Ryan Day's wife may not be faking it, but is maximizing the story because they want to maximize Ryan Day's victimhood, even though he just won a national title. So it's pathetic. This is more proof, by the way, that Ryan Day's not cut out to be a head coach. And the only reason Ohio State won the national title is because Chip Kelly and that defense coordinator, Jim Knowles, had the best game plans every game. And Ryan Day was just a mascot walking the sidelines. I think Ed Orgeron has a higher IQ than Ryan Day.